we're just checking the Zoom.
Recording in progress.
I'm like,
just don't hit me with it.
Thank you for your service.
Right, I cracked the table.
No,
Yes.
it's fun.
Yeah. That's great. It's nice to have you back.
Thank you.
Are we waiting here for the recording, right? So I'd just like to warn everybody, yesterday I...
Recording in progress.
Oh, never mind. I see it, but I shut my dishwasher packet. I shut the thing and it shot directly in my eyeball.
Oh, bro.
In the I mean, it was crazy.
Oh, goodness.
So I encourage everybody to get one of those things you can rinse your eye out.
They're stinging for
Oh my God, yes. My daughter's like, sodium bicarbonate? That's in a router.
That's no more than
No. Thank you. Okay. All right.
Okay. It looks like it's on now. Usually there's like a side thing, but sometimes
It doesn't
it's
look
just-
like the normal Zoom.
It doesn't.
No.
Sometimes
But
you just
if-
have to set it up for the side view, but.
All right, well, we will call the May meeting here to order and do a roll call
Chair Namath,
here.
Vice Chair Freese,
Here.
Councilmember Redmond,
Here?
Councilmember Damon, Councilmember Wenta, Councilmember Shurouse.
Here.
You left me out.
Sorry, council,
I'm here.
Please.
committee
have-
member, and I'm
Here.
saying council member, it's committee
Yeah.
member, sorry. Committee member Bradford.
Yes.
Here.
Who is joining us after serving.
But have we put you,
Yay.
have
We
we done
have-
this yet?
Pardon? No.
We still have the old members because we haven't put him on.
Well, his seat was left open.
Right, but we have to formally put him on there back, like, part of the reorg. I think that's part of the reorg. Anyway,
At the end of the meeting.
yeah, because, well,
I think he was appointed by council, correct? So if he's appointed by council.
okay, all right. Then we messed up the agenda. Okay, we're good.
All right. Can we get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right. Do we have any communications from citizens? No? All right, well, we have a presentation today, a recycling presentation with Jeff Sabin of Waste Management. So we are thrilled to have you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jeff Sabin. I'm Government Affairs Manager for WM, formerly Waste Management, formerly Nickel Sanitation, right, Tom?
Yes.
For those of us that have long tenures. And I really appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today, share some updates, and then I really want to talk a little bit about the future of recycling. But I think the impetus behind the message is to kind of debunk a lot of what the scuttlebutt is out, and that recycling isn't working, and that the materials that you take your time and effort to set aside to have repurposed, they're actually being repurposed and going back into the market. And as a company and a firm committed to the environment and sustainability, WM is at the forefront of this entire industry as the leader of the industry, which we're proud to say. Domestically, we are the largest recycler in North America, and very proud of that fact. So what I was going to do to start off is contextually a little history about where we were and how we got to kind of bridge the gap till today, and then I'll lead into the presentation, and then I'll end up talking about local impacts, your local recycling program here in Palm Beach County. Kind of a little bit of, since I'm being recorded, I'm going to have to be somewhat, I would say, sensitive to some of the things and my opinion, and I'll venture down that path later in the presentation. So historically, and we'll talk about the state of Florida, and even prior to that, recycling was the right thing to do, like oatmeal. It was something started by our forefathers and mothers, and it was war-related, and it was really a means for us to recapture resources and to reuse for war purposes. And that whole initiative was really focused on capturing everything that is consumed to be reused for our survival. And it became a culture. But it didn't last long because the Industrial Revolution came
Recording in
along.
progress.
And now I have to be really careful. But so it's changed, and it's kind of cyclical. The recycling, I would say, behaviors have been cyclical, and then we've kind of evolved into the generation of consumer convenience. More or less a lot of single-use products, things like that, for mostly plastics that get thrown away and are in some sense essential, especially the packaging, for the preservation of sanitation, to keep things clean, sterile. A lot of items are that way, and to protect us as consumers as well. If you notice, a lot of the child safety single-use things as well came along because we had issues in the past with tampering of products. So we have evolved and demonstrated as a culture that we have changed tremendously, and that our habits have changed as well. And so it's really incumbent upon us to really realize and be sensitive to what we consume, how we consume, and why we consume. So as a company, WM is focused on that, and we're not waste management anymore, we're WM. And that kind of fits into our whole theme, and that's commitment to circularity and sustainability as a solutions company, not necessarily just a waste company. People question me all the time. They see when I say zero waste, they go, well, it means you won't have a job. Yes, we will. Yes, we will, especially if we're, again, at the forefront in creating solutions for the management and ultimate disposition of all materials being generated. So with that, leading up today in the state of Florida, back in 1988, the state of Florida passed what's called the Solid Waste Management Act of 1988. It was spearheaded by Senator George Kilpatrick at the time. It was groundbreaking for the state of Florida. We seem to be behind the 8 ball relative and in terms to other areas of the country. We're not quite as progressive in terms of the environment and our protection of it. And so we, as a state, and some of our leaders said, we're landfilling everything. We have only so many disposal sites. We see that our airspace is finite, and that eventually we're going to run out of airspace, and we need to stop landfilling. We need to refocus on recycling. That's when the Solid Waste Management Act, almost 36 years ago, was passed, and it set certain goals for the state of Florida for diversion and recycling. It set a 75% diversion and recycling goal, and I believe we've already, I think it was supposed to be in 2017, I believe. Don't hold me to that. But we still aren't there as a state. But FDEP has placed some pretty significant goals in trying to capture and reuse and recycle everything that's possible to preserve airspace in our landfills, and to divert the material away from all disposal and processing facilities, because it's a cost saver. If we avoid the disposal cost of bringing those materials, that's a win right there. That makes that economic equation a positive. Just doing that, let alone the value of the materials and how it's being processed. So that's a little bit of background, a little bit about the state of Florida, And now I'm going to talk about WM and our program. And I'll go through pretty quickly because then I'll get to the local, where we are today in Palm Beach County, and specifically in the village of Tequesta, which I'm sure your concern and your focal point is. We're the leader, as I said. We continue to develop new facilities across the United States. We are citing these locations, obviously, in some high population areas, hub and spoke, to make it economically feasible to feed these large processing facilities from shorter distances to reduce in our trucking costs. In some areas, we're able to actually intermodal materials.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Actually rail. We do a lot of that in the Northwest. Up in the state of Washington and Oregon, we have some disposal facilities and processing in those areas that are intermodally fed. We're working on and breaking through some potential conceptual intermodal actually facilities here in the state of Florida. Very excited about that. Trying to reduce the amount of trucks on the road. The transfer trailers, those are those 100 cubic yard large tractor trailers. We're trying to reduce the number of those that are needed to transport these materials to our processing facilities. 14.8 million tons. It's kind of mind-boggling to put that into perspective on size and dimension. I forgot the number of stadiums that fills, but it's significant, and it is. I think we're heading in the right direction based on the trend lines. There you can see the last 3 years. The latest I think this captures is 2020. We're a little behind 2022. Some of this data is based back to 2022. Next, please. Processing. Circular economy. We continue to embrace what we call the circular economy, which is basically, and I simplify it, I call it, and I did this when we were presenting, the recycling symbol. It's the triangles that go around, pretty much representing that, where we are able to capture the materials, process them, and I've been kind of forewarned, we aren't always the end user, we're kind of the capture and the process, and then we prepare all items, and we'll talk about each item independently, preparing them for market. And the market shift and the demand shifts for different products, especially plastics, which are more prevalent now. Of course, they're the lightest weight. They cost the most to handle because things are all measured by weight, go figure. But that's the way the system is today. So this points to each product and how we capture and process. You can go ahead. Thank you, Mary Ann. And shaping the markets. Again, and this is kind of an interesting sidebar, is that you probably recall back about 4, 5, maybe even 6 years ago, much of what was generated in the United States, in North America, recycling-wise, materials were being shipped to China. We, as a company, WM, we had some really great overseas markets that we were exporting quality materials to, but a lot of bad actors got in the way. They were shipping, and I think there was a 60-minute segment on this, where they were shipping what was supposed to be clean cardboard with hazardous waste, and they were shipping it to China for disposal, subjecting the Chinese and their crews and the people handling the materials to obviously environmentally unsound conditions. And so the Chinese put up what they call the green fence. That means we're good, we're going to process our own, we don't need yours. You've kind of crossed the line, if you will, with the quality, especially on the extreme end of it. But that kind of forced a domestic internal look and relook at the availability of market and processing in the United States. We were on the forefront because we were the largest. We had to find local consumers, in every element and every material. Plastics, obviously. Aluminum is never a really issue. They're re-consumers, and it's the most valuable metal that is produced and recycled. But plastics were a challenge, definitely, for us. But we continue to shape the market in creating materials that are marketable and have high value. So that puts a great deal of pressure. Go ahead, Mary Ann, please. On our processing. We are proud to announce we're building, and we had the groundbreaking of a new facility next to the existing facility in Pembroke Pines to the south of us. I think it's on the northernmost portion of Broward in Broward County. Or southernmost, it's near the Dade County line, I believe, Pembroke Pines. So it's in the south. It's a huge facility. We're really excited about it, and we're incorporating a great deal of high technology in the separation, also to minimize the necessary labor of crew people on the line picking and what we call negative sorting of materials that they go down the line. A lot of it is automated, robotic. We've got optical sorting lenses that actually are able to identify materials on the processing line, and it recaptures, redirects them to the correct baler and end processing activities, which is really exciting for us. So we should be, since we broke ground, I think 2020, let's see, it says breakman, yeah. And we should, I think, in about 16 months, have that particular facility online. It is for single stream processing. So that's where all the materials are commingled. Most of our processing facilities, actually all, are single stream. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. Okay? This is kind of commercial, always working for sustainable tomorrow. Up and through our entire organization, we develop, maintain, retain, and promote a culture of sustainability and high ethics and value for what we do. From the driver that picks up in front of your home to the CEO's office. We all are reading off the same script in our commitment to sustainability and ethical operations of all of our facilities, and we're very proud of that fact. Next. Recycle right. We also partner with all of our municipal customers and the counties we serve across the United States on trying to maintain quality materials that are picked up, collected, processed, and then marketed. Every day it's a challenge, and we always get the questions about the pizza boxes, and we also get do the peanut butter and do the sour cream containers have to be cleaned and rinsed, those types of things. So it's a continual process of educating. And we see the ebbs and flows and kind of the same kind of cyclical responses to our education. We full on and push, and we send out reminders, and we see the quality and the material, the volume start to increase. But then 6 months to 18 months later, it falls off again. So it really takes continual pressing and reinforcement on both education but communication as well. We've learned a lot in that area. And we have some, and am I on a time as well? Because I want to be very respectful of your time.
I mean, I'm interested in hearing this.
Okay,
All right.
You're fine. You can gong me whenever.
Yeah, I've got it here. I'm ready.
You know, I'll see some, when I see bobbing heads, I know. Move it along, Jeff, move it along. Okay, Mary Ann, next. Palm Beach County. I talked about single stream, because that's the process in which WM captures, collects, processes, and markets. In Palm Beach County, we're on the dual sort, as you know, dual stream recycling, where the materials are separated in both what we call fiber and commingled. They're collected in those 18-gallon bins, and the authority now has those larger, do you see that, blue? I think it's about a 35-gallon container that we also dump as well. And they are available through request through the Solid Waste Authority. If for some reason you generate more of that type of material, which we found to be prevalent, because it's the commingled bottles, jars,
Yeah.
and a lot of plastics in those containers that we consume at the grocery. Most all of which are recycled, most all of which can end up in the blue bin. And then on the yellow side, pretty much all fiber ends up processed and reused. And we have local mills. I call local Georgia, North Florida, a lot of mills where we send a lot of that fiber, most of which is cardboard and a lot of it's baled. That comes from the commercial businesses and mostly from the big boxes. They internalize all of their cardboard. So we'll just use Publix because we've got a couple. They have balers in the back room where they take all the cardboard that they reuse and they receive all their groceries in, and they put that in the baler, bale it up, and then they set the bales out. And then the distribution trucks that come from wherever, Deerfield or north or south, wherever, they reload those into the trucks to take back to the distribution centers, where then they're sent by large trucks to the mills. So there's a tremendous amount of capture in the large consumer, larger big box commercial businesses. They do a tremendous job, and that because that's a lot of weight. That represents significant weight and volume in recovering for the state of Florida's goals. Next. Oh, I put this in kind of informational, and it ties to what is and isn't recyclable, those materials, and we also do this selfishly for our collection crews, where a lot of materials that are generated, we call them household hazardous waste, and those are those basic chemicals and pesticides and liquids and things that are expired and unusable, but need to be diverted from the waste stream. And the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County has that convenience center right there in Military and Donald Ross, where their transfer station is. So they also take fluorescent bulbs. That's the other thing. The bulbs, then the batteries, the B&Bs, along with all those things you keep in your garage that expire that I've already talked about, and other things that you contain that you think are okay, but it's better safe than sorry, and we'd appreciate it, and the Solid Waste Authority would as well. Because what it does, it keeps the cost down. They used to have an amnesty day, which would open up the basic intake for all of those things on an annual or quarterly basis. And this way they have these convenience centers around the county to allow residents to bring those materials. Oils too, I don't know where most of the cylinders, the gas cylinders, you take back and exchange them, but they do take those as well. And we hope those stay out. And of course medical waste as well needs to follow the correct path. And disposal is not one of them in your garbage. So information about that, and they have a great website. So SWA, you're welcome for the commercial. Next, please. That's it. Wow. Is it 22 minutes? So I think as a wrap up to this, and how it, in terms of the village's recycling efforts, I find that most residents are recycling, a lot of recycling already. Does it mean that, are we at a point where we can do more, divert more, recycle more? Absolutely. It's always in our best interest to recycle the most we can to divert it. Where we differ a little bit here in Palm Beach County, and where other counties that have landfills and other means of disposal, because Palm Beach County has a waste to energy facility, even those things that end up in the trash generate renewable energy. So that's a real positive. It's a fairly expensive process. The authority does a great job in running and operating those waste to energy facilities down off 45th Street. If you ever want to take a tour, you can. They've got an education center down there that is remarkable. I've been in the business my entire career, and I learned a lot by taking the tour with the authority staff through their facilities. And then they also have tours of the material recycling facility, what we call a MRF. And they're all within that 45th Street, their main complex there. So I would recommend that if you'd like hands-on and learn more about how they actually handle all the materials. The authority over the last few years has studied the economics of their program in Palm Beach County. They had a workshop a couple years ago, maybe not that long, where they did a financial deep dive of what they're doing and how they're doing it. And at the time, commodity prices were not very good, and pretty much the program was showing a lot of red and not a lot of, in this case, green. So they're looking at their program, hence commodity markets have returned. The valuations on the materials I mentioned are much better now, and we've got some domestic consumers that are actually looking for quality products that the authority generates, markets, bales, and provides to markets. So it is very positive. And we continue as a company to single stream, and Palm Beach County continues to dual stream. And there will be a time, I think we'll hit some, where the cost of collection will kind of probably, maybe, potentially outstrip the commodity value. Right now, you're in an interlocal agreement with the authority. That interlocal agreement with the authority pretty much is what we call a flow control. You have an agreement to deliver all your materials to the authority, and as a result of that, there is a revenue share where they share some of the revenue derived from the processing and marketing of the materials. So that is a positive. So with that, I think currently the authority and the interlocal agreement is in place, and that's the way things are going, at least for now. At least it's going to be dual stream, and we continue to collect dual stream. With specialized trucks, if you notice, they're split, what we call split body rear loaders. They actually have a body that's split right down the middle with two separate independently operating, hydraulically operating compressors, if you will, on each side. Obviously, one's for the yellow and one's for the blue, so one's for the commingled and the other's for the fiber. And we collect from all the residences and multifamily dwelling units as well within the village. So, but the cost, and we're talking about automation and going to automation for garbage collection, for solid waste collection going forward to make it more convenient. And actually the impetus behind that is cost savings. Going forward, labor continues to be an issue through COVID and even after. We still are experiencing supply chain issues as well, but you'd think we'd get over the hump by now. But we haven't, but we've increased our benefit packages to not only acquire but to retain people, and that comes at a cost. So we're hedging our bets and working hard to keep our costs down so we don't have to pass them back through to the consumers and the ratepayers. In this case, these are village residents. We're proud to be the server and provider for the village for, gosh, almost 40 years, and hope another 40s in our future with you all. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or anything you may have.
I do have a question, because we've talked about recycling at our parks and did a little work on that. What would be your two top suggestions, best practices that we could do to help our residents, recycle? What are the best things that you've seen that have I guess, brought
Success.
Yes, thank you.
Participation.
That have helped, that get people to recycle, that, something we could do to help our village.
Great question. I think just updating them on kind of the state of recycling will, I think, tweak some interest, at least, at a minimum. you know, I just was thinking through some other kind of concepts and ideas. People love to compete. They love to compete. And how that would translate into, you know, feet on the ground, where the rubber meets the road, you know, it's worth further discussing. But yeah, competition, raising awareness, number one. Just getting people to understand that what they're doing is benefiting not only our environment, but it's also offsetting cost. So competition and the dollar signs seem to grab people's attention pretty quickly from our perspective. But we really push the education piece, where we update. People always like to get new information that they can use in their discussions with their neighbors and what have you socially, whether it be on social media or whatever. That's another great way to get people engaged. And then we can do surveys and things like that. Surveys are always kind of getting feedback from residents. We feel is vitally important to take their temperature, find out what they're really concerned with. You know, what's going to move the needle, so to speak. So awareness, though, really, I think is number one with us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have questions. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I've got two for you. Just to understand, when you were talking about air rights, is that the landfill height? And so how is that determined through a state?
That's an interesting question. In the disposal business, especially landfilling, space is a commodity. So the space allowed for and permitted above the surface of the ground is measured. And that's why landfill operators like to get the best compaction, because they want to preserve the amount of airspace they have left to fill. So if you kind of visualize a pyramid, for instance, I think pyramid's probably what we do, we call those lifts. Each layer of garbage as we build a landfill is called a lift. And the space above the last lift is the airspace that's still permittably allowable to be filled with solid waste. So the airspace is really a commodity and an asset in the landfill business. And there's a calculation that actually calculates the depletion rate of airspace left. And we also have to file with FDEP annually what the calculation is and what our actual airspace estimate is for future disposal purposes. And for monitoring and all of the other regulatory requirements by FDEP and that permit that has to be applied and abided by. So airspace is a valuable measurement.
So is there a height limit?
There is. And the landfill has what we call a footprint. And that's the linear area that the actual footprint of the landfill takes up on that piece of property, land. And then it's built up from there. And it has permitted, first of all, it has permitted volume, inbound volume on a per day basis and correlated on a periodic basis. And then there are all the other permits involved, but yes, there are height limitations.
Do you know what it is for us here?
It depends on the size of the footprint, basically, yeah. It's like, again, back to the pyramid concept. The wider the footprint, the taller the...
Oh yeah, I know how, we know how this works.
How this works?
I'm well aware with this concept.
So there is a landfill
Seems to be.
in Okeechobee that you can see from State Road 70 now as you head west into Okeechobee. Yeah, that's
My
our
second
landfill.
question was, the process that's used in Martin County with a single container for recycles, is that single stream that you're talking about?
Yes, yes, ma'am,
Okay,
it
so
is.
that's not something we're going to see in Palm Beach County for near future.
I know
Here
what
we
Jeff
go.
Right,
wants.
right.
This
You're
is-
going to say, yeah.
This is the path. Yes. And Martin County felt that they studied. They made a determination that they were only capturing X number of tons of recyclable material within their populace. And they felt that the bins, 18-gallon bins, were not as convenient as a 64-gallon mobile cart on wheels with lids. And they felt that, and there's a flip side to everything. So, and the argument for the dual stream is going to come to light. So what we have experienced through our initiation and development of the single stream recycling program is that the capture rate is much higher. We capture more than 30% by weight and volume, recycled materials, because it's much more convenient and it's easy. But what comes with that is the potential for additional contamination as well. Sometimes users use the recycling, in this case Martin County's cart, for garbage overage. So contamination does come into play when you consider adopting a single stream program. So you really have to have a processor that's built and designed for that. But we build our facilities knowing what the residue count's going to be. We pretty much know what the outthrows are. We have so many tons coming through our facilities. Our data is really spot on. So, but we found that our single stream programs capture a larger, greater volume and weight of recycled materials, and we're able to process and market all those materials. Yes, there's a higher residue count, which deducts because that material has to be captured and then disposed of properly. So that's on that negative line, full disclosure. So, but it's still outpacing in the capture rate. Now, the dual stream program, specific to Palm Beach County as well, they keep looking at their numbers. They keep looking at the tons and the volume and their contamination rate. And they feel that because they've got a lower contamination rate, although they have a lower capture rate, they're able to get a higher value return on the commodities because it doesn't get mixed, broken. When the glass breaks in the single stream, it gets mixed up with the other materials. They're able to keep a cleaner end product in Palm Beach County. They market it. They get a higher commodity value. Again, they may not be hitting the number volume-wise or weight on their capture rate, but they're committed to staying the course with the dual stream, at least for now. So we're being asked throughout wherever I go about the single stream recycling program because people would really like the convenient cart versus they like to replace those bins with a nice, 64-gallon cart, and that's understandable. So, but we're in discussions. The village manager and I have had numerous discussions about the potential and what that would look like. We probably need a bigger group, let's say. It may have to include other adjacent, but then I've got to be careful because you have an interlocal agreement, plus we have agreements with the authority as well. So out of respect for the system they have in place, we're going to go down the path, but we'll definitely look into the potential for it, single stream recycling.
Just to piggyback off that, are there other counties that are single stream?
Yes.
Okay, so that data is growing to analyze and...
Absolutely.
Okay.
The habits of the dual stream, though, reflect the culture of what we're trying to achieve as a whole society, though. I mean, I feel like the dual stream reflects a higher diligence or higher habit level, I guess, right? I mean... Just the separation, right.
Just the forced separation
right.
does that,
Mm-hmm.
correct. you have to think,
And it
gosh.
seems almost backwards moving to, you know, these people that are so used to doing that for so long, it almost seems, you know, like you'd be stepping backwards to be, you know, providing one bin to them, because we've come so far in trying to get these habits formed to this, you know, extent. But-
Some of the drivers to single stream are, and I said the convenience of not having to separate, where everything can go in the same bin. The convenience of that, population age, lugging those 18-gallon bins. A lot of people have those little toter cart things on wheels, whatever. And generally, then the overages as well. What do I do? Am I going to need 3 bins? I generate a lot of whatever it is. I consume a lot of. It's not newspapers anymore.
I have 2 yellow
Co-
bins and a big a
Right.
blue bin
Oh.
that they dropped off. I mean, I just went online and I filled the thing out and they dropped them
Perfect.
right off on
That's
recycle
right.
day. It was great. Yeah.
Right. The other thing is the restrictiveness of the dual stream when it comes to cardboard. Because right now we say 3 by 3 so it'll fit in the 18-gallon bin. Most people, when they have an Amazon delivery or they buy a large screen TV or an appliance, I mean, dimensionally, the cardboard doesn't fit in the program today. So that just you tweaked I was thinking through that, both the impediments and the positives as well, kind of the balancing act that this is. I mean, we're definitely doing it. We're doing a balancing act right now and trying to accomplish more and continue on a program as well and make it more convenient and hopefully more participation.
Do you, and I apologize, Russ, for jumping in. Do you foresee any chance of increasing the cardboard size that would be acceptable? Has there been any talk of that?
You need a bigger bin.
Bigger, yeah. The issue we have is that it's got to fit. Well, we do it with the rear loader, so mostly, unless it's a really big piece of cardboard, our crews can pick it up and put it in that. But
Sometimes
dimension-
they take it and sometimes they don't, right? So, I
Right.
mean, yeah.
which isn't good for either one of us.
Well, no,
Because we
but,
don't want to
yeah.
leave anything on the curb. Yeah, clean curb.
Right.
That's why we're talking about the carts for garbage too. We don't want to curb appeal as well. So that's the other thing.
And, but isn't that also potentially a timing? Because if there was leftover cardboard you guys couldn't take, then if the trash came through afterwards, they've always picked it up. I've
Yeah.
never had things just left, you know.
Right.
But I've noticed, like, recycling didn't take it, I wonder if, and then the garbage will take it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, and our
Coordination.
crews kind of they work together.
Right.
So,
okay.
and then the other thing, although we haven't had much of it lately, rain soaks all the paper, and that creates an issue. Definitely here, and we already get dinged by the pulp folks that process it, because they actually probe the bales for moisture content. Because then they deduct from, it just makes you think about when the humidity gets to a certain level, the paper absorbs it, it just adds weight. So they're going, hey, we're paying for water weight. So a lot of the mills, anything south of Mason-Dixon, they already deduct, especially during the summer period. Is that wild? I mean, who would have
Thanks
thought?
for
I
being a
mean,
human climate.
they've got it down to a science for sure.
Makes sense.
So,
Yes. Can we dehumidifier? What is the?
right, yeah,
Like,
put
stick
it
it
in
under a heat lamp for-
air-conditioned
yeah.
buildings, right?
Something.
Keep your recycling bin in an air-conditioned space.
You're right. So,
Okay. Thank you. Was there, Russ, did you?
I'm good.
No, Tom?
Yeah, Jeff, it seems to me, in addition to boosting communications through our newsletter, telling everybody, hey, recycling is working, the revenues are up, except the things you touched on, it seems to me that our two big problems are, one, we have a lot of strip centers, shopping centers, that don't have a big box company. And these little mom and pop shops don't have any play, based upon the way the current contract works, the landowner, for whatever reason, we've tried this in the past, they're not interested in putting say the smallest dumpster that you have because of the cost, so that the businesses in the strip center can recycle and by placement in that smaller dumpster. The other thing is we have a lot of older multifamily type of places. And in terms of, like, I learned this through my son who's lived all across the country. The modern apartments have, in multifamily, they have like the chutes on every floor where you can put the garbage chute, and now the newer places have the recycling chute, and sometimes maybe 3 chutes because of the separation issue. But so we don't have that either. So I think, you know, Americans being Americans, they're just gonna put everything in the garbage, and I think that's somehow we have to figure out a way to improve our recycling in those 2 areas.
Great point, Tom. I'll address the commercial, and on a scale as well. Commercial generators are the primary. I mean, from a weight standpoint, everything's measured by tons. The commercial sector generates a tremendous amount of recyclable materials. The issue, and it's not necessarily an issue, but a delineation is with the commercial recycling is not regulated, it's open market. So it's not linked to the franchise agreement. That means any provider that, and mostly it's cardboard, pretty much the cardboard contractors that put out bins and for cardboard. Basically we have an offering to do that, and it's at a cost. So some of these retailers and strip owners look at that and they go, doesn't make good business for, you know, it's green and it's the right thing to do, and they should provide an outlet for all clean recyclable materials generated on that property. They should have an incentive to want to do that, and they could use any of the recyclers, including WM, but there are lots of other companies that commercially provide containers and do the pickup throughout Palm Beach County, throughout the state.
So before you keep going further, you might not like this, nor would a lot of other people, but could we add that provision as a franchise item, which is currently not a franchise item, and mandate through a law, an ordinance in Tequesta that says commercial areas have to recycle. They have to provide the facilities.
No.
We can't do that?
No, because there's a state statute that prohibits that.
Right.
I know. Yeah. We've tried it.
Yeah.
And failed miserably. Yeah. We tried to include it in a couple of the franchises, and it got legally pounded. So yeah, it didn't see the light of day.
So it might be that one way is for the commercial businesses in the strip center to come together and impress upon the owner that they want that, perhaps.
Right, correct. And obviously work with the village on the siting of a dumpster if it needs to be screened or whatever through the whatever ordinance you inhabit. Absolutely, that's great, and we'd encourage that.
What about the multifamily problem?
Yeah, the multifamily, and let's, for your reference point, Tequesta Garden Apartments.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Underground cans. Upstairs, downstairs. Underground can next to the stairwells. Very limited space. But we do provide a big roll-off container because there are 248, I think, units, and yeah, I think that's close. We have a roll-off recycling container that they utilize. So we do and have addressed with that particular property. So we'll kind of real quick look at the condos that have garbage chutes. A lot of them have the blue and yellow toter carts, the 96 and the 64-gallon carts. They have them in their trash rooms. And the people religiously bring their stuff. I wish they wouldn't put it in grocery bags, but that's like, I didn't spend a lot of time because it's kind of obvious, but we spent millions and millions of dollars just cleaning and trying to keep our processing and facilities clear of the plastic grocery bags that get wrapped around all of our conveyor belts. But back to the condos, yeah, a lot of them do, but not all of them. I think there is an opportunity there as well for the condos that aren't. We could work with them. We'll willing to audit and go out and do an audit. Go to their site, visit with them, look at their space that they have, and see if they have enough they can allocate for recycling. We're willing to do that.
I believe that's the same at Whitehall, right? So my question is, I guess, for these 55, for the senior, for the communities or the buildings that are seniors, how are they expected to get the trash? Do they have to throw it up and into those bins, or is there a door, or how do they get the trash into the big extra, how you said that's sitting on site?
Yeah, Tequesta Garden Park, we have a special roll-off container with little sliding doors on the side.
Oh, okay. All right. That's
Yeah,
cool.
and it's divided. They got the commingled on one side and the paper or fiber on the other. And they just bring their stuff and they open it. Keep knocking this around. They open the door.
Okay.
And just, yeah, it's very accessible.
I know that I've got family members that do blood thinners and bumping and getting scratched, is definitely, so I would be interested to know, are those utilized, those, as much, the on-site, or?
We do have those in those locations that can accommodate them. Yeah, I've got an idea now. There's an apartment complex here in the village as well. I'll have to take a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they have the 2 carts, but I'll look at it. One right up the street here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
There are definitely some opportunities in the village, and we're more than willing to work with the village and staff, and then actually go out on our own and do some audits.
Because we have our seasonal community, a lot is coming from up north where they're regularly used to doing these things and the habits are in place. And I'm somebody that sets up out at the public, events, so I hear a lot about, the bags, and they're used to paying for them and that sort of thing. So I think as long as the convenience factor, like you're saying, is there, they would certainly be more inclined to use them. But if it's difficult or they're nervous about, getting into the dumpster, I think that would certainly be a deterrent,
And then the other outside at parks and special events, those are really tough because, again, people, they look for the closest cart or garbage can. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff gets contaminated at those special events. We try like heck. We put carts with just little holes in that lock. They figure out how to stuff their paper plates and stuff in there.
Roll a burrito style and shove it through, right?
It's like, we do our best.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the positive thing is, again, the residue all goes to the waste energy facility, which produces renewable energy at the worst. I mean, at a cost, but at least here in Palm Beach County, all materials either get recycled on the front end or get converted from waste to energy on the back end. So it's not a bad story.
Do you have any more, Tom?
No, I'm done.
Sorry, Brad.
That's so you'd mentioned before the single stream option in Martin County, And you said 30% more recyclable material is collected, is that correct?
Yeah.
Was that like per household or per,
Yeah.
how does that calculate out?
It,
30?
it was based on the total tonnage. So 30% more overall gross tons were generated by that product, whether it's broken down into the individual resident, but the end result was their capture rate increased by 30%. They were able to capture 30% more materials from the waste stream. They divert 30%. We know the weight measurements on garbage. We know what that number is. And in Palm Beach County, oh gosh, your calculation, it hasn't changed in a while. I think if you break it down, it's 1.5 tons and about a ton of garbage, MSW, household garbage. And then you got 0.5 for yard waste, and then the rest is recycled. But yeah, they do a calculation as well in Palm Beach County, and they do it by unit, and then they issue us disposal credits based on the tonnage, based on weight.
And the reason Palm Beach County is not on the single stream versus Martin County is because it's just less financially feasible, single stream?
No, I don't believe, depends, if you look at the program, what we call the front end or the back end, or start or finish. So from the collection point, and then we'll go real quickly through where the costs are. So obviously you have the cost of collection. Single stream is less expensive because we do it automated. ASL, automated side loader, picks up. That eliminates the two-person separation, pickup, 2 bins. So there's a cost saving that's on the front end of the single stream. Then on the processing, the single stream is also set up to process all materials commingled together, whereas Authority is set up their MRF to do the big divide, where they have a line for the commingled and they have a separate processing line for all the fiber. So it would seem to me that would be kind of a replication, if you will, of having to do. Plus we have and we talked about single stream front. They're the convenient and what have you, and then the processing is not as much cost as well. There may be more residue, but on the dual stream, 2 bins, a 2-person crew on a rear loader with a divided body, that if one side fills up before the other one, oh yeah, I didn't mention that, but I am being recorded. But it happens where we'll fill the commingled up before the fiber, especially in this day and age. We get a lot more plastics. So they've got to drive dump, even though I only have half a compartment full of fiber. They still have to go and dump and come back to the route again. So that's another kind of collection cost. And I think a lot of the costs on the front end of the dual stream are going to continue to escalate. That's my opinion. And that even though their capture rate is consistent in the dual stream, and the commodity value, because of the lesser contamination of the materials because they are separated, and the commodity values, this may start to outstrip the revenue.
Yeah.
The costs, I think, are going to continue to go up. If you did a chart, it's what I think, I'm kind of predicting that based on what we've experienced over the last 3 years with labor and everything else. So, but I've had the same discussion with the Authority, and they realize it. So they're going to be looking at it very closely, probably. Maybe not. That's not really my purview. But.
Yeah, because I would have never guessed almost a third, 30% more. That's significant.
Yeah.
And, that lends itself to just convenience.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit different than my colleague here. The convenience aspect,
Americans will pay for convenience.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay.
And Martin County, they automated their single stream collection before their garbage. We were pushing them, let's do a twofer. Let's do both at the same time. But they're a little reluctant. They are now going to consider it though, because they see the costs. They see what's happening in the industry. So.
And so what do they make, like, because it's shared, so what is their benefit over ours, like, in terms of the single stream?
You're talking
Martin
about
County.
Dollars.
Pretty much. And Martin County internalizes, so what they do, we collect it, we deliver it to them at their facility, and they actually transport it themselves to a processing facility in St. Lucie County. So their revenue, and the revenue derived from their program pays for all the transportation, processing, and then they get a revenue share on every dollar that exceeds the cost of transportation and processing. Then they have a 50, I don't know what their percentage, it was in their local agreement between the two counties, but then they share in the revenue. So it's a pretty creative approach, and it kind of builds in those incentives as well. So.
I'm done. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, okay, do you have any, do you want to go?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, I was curious, aside from the Pembroke Pines expansion, what other potential site locations they're looking at for building in the state that you had kind of mentioned?
We are looking, we're in a kind of a building infrastructure, as I indicated, because we're trying to create a network for efficiencies and reduction of costs, especially trucking. So I think conceptually we're looking at the larger markets around the state as well. We're looking at Orlando, over on the West Coast, Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, those kind of hubs, those larger centers. And we're also in the C&D, or construction and demolition debris processing and recycling as well. We're looking at a number of facilities to do that and expand our network within the state of Florida. With all the construction that's going on, it's unbelievable the amount of construction waste that's going into landfills. It just it's mind numbing. It's maddening.
So does that happen? Is our facility here? Do they take the C&D, or do they take construction waste?
They're actually, the county doesn't, but there are a number of independent operators, and we're one of them, that operate these C&D processing facilities. And it's a huge network. There are a lot of small ones all over the place, so they're highly accessible.
And okay, any of those that they're looking at for this area?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all I can say.
Anywhere you want to give me a hint? Okay, I was curious what your top three, like the strategic relationships that you had talked about, you know, what those would be, for example, or what your top strategic relationships are with partners in the state.
Well, we are currently aligned with the recycling, Keep Florida Beautiful, and the Recycling Alliance. I forget the actual state name, but we're very involved in that at the state level.
Would that be
For
like
sure.
the Keep Palm Beach County Beautiful? Is that
Yes, that's one of them. Keep Florida Beautiful, and all the affiliates. Palm Beach County, Martin County, they all have affiliates. City of Port St. Lucie has a Keep Port St. Lucie. Those are all affiliates of Keep Florida Beautiful. And we're one of the first members of that, and proud of that. But we're also aligned with a number of other environmental organizations in the state, specifically the Recycling Coalition. Of course, the solid waste industry has their own kind of group, and lobbyists in Tallahassee, of course. So, because as you know, the state, within this last session, which would be the prior year, tried to float a bill making you all go into the garbage business. That I'm just generalizing, but it was one in which was totally disruptive to the partnerships that you just mentioned. So we're keeping an eye on that every session on that. But yeah, we're aligned with most all the, and of course we're members and participate in the Florida League of Cities and the Florida Association of Counties. And it helps us keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on with our public sector partners.
And what investments, for example, are top investments that you guys are making?
Sustainability.
Any
And
specific?
Yeah, that's the broad umbrella, but to drill down on what that really means, and if you look at our sustainability report, the company is investing over $1 billion and maybe $3.8 billion in sustainable initiatives. In particular is our RNG program, and that's the reusable natural gas, and this is gas derived from landfills. Our goal as a company is to capture all landfill gas and to convert it into reusable gas. Number one, to fuel our fleet, our operating collection vehicles, if feasible, and secondly, to provide that gas back into the network. So those projects are in. I can't say anything right now, but I'm only about a week or two away from making a fairly significant announcement of locally the impact we're going to have locally on one of those projects that we've broken ground on. That's huge. I've been for years, for probably over a decade and a half, 15, 20, I've been trying to, on all our landfills in the state of Florida, get to these programs where we'd be capturing all the gas instead of flaring them. It's just contributing heat. The reusable methane does take a lot of refining to get it to a point where it's clean enough for combustion, especially engine and what have you. Where would you use it? Where we use it. So it does take a tremendous investment. One of our obstacles has been trying to get on the grid, and we couldn't get interconnects, especially near our Okeechobee landfill. We've been trying for years to get FP&L to get an interconnect for us close enough. Just the engineering wasn't right. They didn't have the power lines close enough for us, but everything seems to be falling into place, and the company's making a huge investment. So.
And so aside from plastic and cardboard, what are the top 3 most sought after resources or most, I guess, valuable to you guys?
Aluminum.
Right, aluminum.
Aluminium. We love it. And it's like universally recyclable.
Right.
Almost, yeah, aluminum. There are lots of plastics. Your basic plastic is PET, polyethylene terephthalate. That's your number 1, clear. And then your HDEP. That's the other plastic. Those 1s and 2s plastics. One's clear and the other one's fog. Those types. And then the ones that detergent comes in, and the solid colored ones. Those types of plastics are most readily reused and they're finding new and better sources for those. The lesser plastics that we do consume and recycle that get mixed and don't have a great market for, we sell a lot of that to extruders. Those are the plastic companies that develop, manufacture the plastic wood. Big companies, Trex, they build everything out of plastic. And from an outdoors person, I love the recycled plastic boardwalks, docks, things like that, but the boardwalks, especially through nature preserves, you don't get the clunk, clunk, clunk that you do on pressure-treated 2x6s or whatever they use. So they absorb, they last, and just the quiet. And recycled plastic is, we're trying to reduce the amount of plastic that's ending up in our oceans, and the microplastics as well that are ending up everywhere. So it's just a huge project. And I think we're all kind of together with that and trying to reduce the amount of plastics. So.
Well, and I guess that this kind of ties into, as I'd mentioned before, I like to set up at our food trucks, for example. So I do a lot of community engagement, and even at my daughter's school previously, I had actually organized an Earth Day event, and I believe it was SWA came in. They had somebody that had, and I was curious if there was a program to educate on recycling or something that their resources. This had to have been 4 or 5 years ago that I had done that, so I wasn't sure if there were any programs or resources for the kids that we could incorporate into the community. And that's, I guess, why I was asking what the most sought after, or like, let's shoot for these and not these, to try to make it more. I think kids love a competition or setting goals, and having being able to tell their parents, we need this or we need that, that I think incentivizes them. So I have 3. So,
Yeah.
So is there anything that you guys do geared towards children with public education?
Yes, we have our own, but in Palm Beach County, we partner with the Solid Waste Authority.
Yeah, okay. And theirs was great. I mean, it was great.
Awesome.
Yes.
Joanna, she retired, but yeah, they have a great group, and whenever we have outdoor events, we usually partner with them. We bring, when we have your shred event, we bring recycling bins. I'm going to knock this off. We bring recycling bins and distribute them to residents that come to shred their documents. And we do that, I think, twice a year. We just did it like tax.
Yeah.
And we do it again in October.
October.
But yeah, so we do that, and we try and raise awareness and make sure everybody has bins and new bins. And to your point too, you just call if you need a new bin or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and then
this was like games for kids. They had like activities for the kids, and they had things, that, is that something that's still active, a program we could call to incorporate in for something?
Sure. We've got little kiosks and things like that, little photo ops with little, anyway, we have fun things as well for the kids. Yeah. Touch it trucks, we do that as well.
Okay. I know you had said, did you want to ask?
I just have one more question. And this might be more appropriate for SWA, but I'm going to ask it anyway. With regard to battery recycling, especially maybe 5, 6, 7 years from now, when there's going to be a number of electric car batteries, EV batteries that are going to be coming back. Have you guys discussed, like, what are we going to do, like strategically, how is this going to work out?
Great question. And batteries right now are really on the front of mind in the industry, but generally speaking. The lithium-ion batteries have created somewhat of an issue. Proper handling and disposal and recycling of those batteries. A lot of them are ending up in the trash. So, and bad consequences. I'm not supposed to go any further than that at this point. So I won't.
Providing
I'm
some
treading on ice.
off. Yeah.
But yeah, batteries. And the Solid Waste Authority has their household hazardous waste convenience center where you bring all your batteries, and they'll recycle them. Also, we partnered with and continue to try and capture all of the electronics, which would be all flat screens, computers, all of that material. They also collect those at the convenience center as well. So there's a big push, and we also have a fluorescent bulb recycling. All of those things are, I think, critically important because we want to keep them out of the environment. And selfishly, I want to protect my crew members that pick up those bulbs and all those things that can be hazardous to them. So that's really a great question. Batteries, and then longer term in a bigger picture is what's going to happen with those EV batteries. And they say that they have a 10-year, life cycle?
Yeah, who knows, really?
Who knows? Exactly. Who really knows? So that is really putting a lot of pressure on us and the entire industry to work with the manufacturers. Because a lot of those batteries, you well know, you do it's rare earth minerals that are coming from halfway across the world, and, you know, creating a situation where we need to use those. We partner with Trademarks Metals in Okeechobee. They have a what we call fluff recycling facility. That's auto fluff, where they take the cars. Well, they strip every usable piece of metal out of the car. Mostly hot, most of the components, your computer chips and all those things. But there's a lot of gold and silver that come out, and they're able to recycle all of that. And a lot of that comes from a big yard in Tampa. So yeah, a bigger push. I'm a big proponent of let's keep it domestic. If we produce it, we should recycle it and reuse it. Let's don't dump it or send it to somebody else. You know, what about all that glass that turns into what we call cullet? When mixed glass gets broken together in the industry, it's called mixed cullet. And it's ground up glass that has no real use, benefit, or value. You know, make a heck of a countertop, kitchen countertop. So that's me and my soapbox. We could get, and we're so entrepreneurial. I mean, come on, a free market. There's so much material out there for free you can get and make real valuable products out of it. So people are getting more creative. I just wish it was at a higher scale. That's really what we're dealing with. It's not scalable.
There is good news on this front that you're talking about. In the last 6 months, 2 United States firms have invented and patented the recycling of the batteries that are in cars. Is it lithium? I don't remember. Yes, they've patented it. And then on a bigger, more dangerous front, there's a company in the United States that has found a way to safely recycle used uranium from the nuclear power plants. So you know, the biggest problem with that is the storage of they now know how to recycle.
We need to figure that out for
Great
frosted
news.
gypsum.
Thanks for sharing that. That's positive. And on a positive note.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions, anybody? No, well, thank you for a wonderful presentation and all of your time.
My pleasure, and on behalf of WM, we appreciate your business. Thank you.
Are we able to get those slides by any chance, or a copy of the slideshow?
The PowerPoint?
Yeah, the
They're
PowerPoint.
going to
emailed
be
it.
in the backup that will be online.
Okay.
I emailed them, so you're all set.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank
You're
you.
very
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you.
Very informative.
All right, that was
Very
wonderful.
interesting.
Yes. All right, so we have the consent agenda here. We have to vote on the consent agenda. Do we have any changes that we're making? No. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Yes.
Consent agenda?
Yeah.
Second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any
There's nothing on the consent agenda.
Well, I'm just going down. You're right,
Okay.
sorry. Yes, I see that here. I was going back and forth. All right. I saw the May, oh, that's this meeting. All right. Regular agenda, we have old business.
First of all, we have to approve the agenda. Did we do that?
Sorry, no, we just did the consent. So we need to approve the regular agenda.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as submitted.
And that was with the changes to the item order, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
on the
Okay.
What is that, item
Just
order?
that I was hoping to change 9 above the others. In other words, the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Task Force
Oh, okay.
item,
Yeah, okay.
I would
Yeah,
prefer to start with.
Yeah, so I made a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Mhm.
Is there a second? I guess you have to
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
ask. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so now we have our old business.
Old business
Ms.
is there.
Michelle?
All business.
Great email.
Good. I just want to catch you up on the meeting that Jay and I had with Dan Comerford from Jupiter Inlet Colony, since they achieved that city. So I'll just briefly go through this for anybody that hasn't read it or for people that are listening. Jupiter and Lake Colony did receive their gold level at the LEED Certified City Program, and that was just actually recently in 2023. And the main objective we wanted to find from him was what was the benefit for Jupiter and Lake Colony. And as we found out from that meeting, their interest in it was because they consider themselves the greenest municipality in Florida, and they felt that the LEED City certification was an additional opportunity to enhance that status. So that was their driving motive for it. And it does involve a year of time and resources, both in labor and funding, so we want to see how that would be applicable to the village. And basically, there was a $2,000 application fee that did end up being virtually free to them through a grant from LEED. And they are smaller than us, obviously, in their town hall, and they did have to outsource, and Bill Whiteford Jay had Bill Whiteford come and speak to us. If you remember it, his fee was about $50,000, and then the additional $50,000 for Tom Johnson, their engineer, and then they also had to use their town hall staff and to research and develop all that data. And so looking at those resources and what it involved for them made sense. Does it make sense for the village of Tequesta? And what did they also get through it? So I listed some of the items that they discovered, we'll say, through their process. And these items pretty much are what we already are aware of in our own village, because we have our committee, EAC, and we have our staff that are already geared towards this. And so the bottom line was, it seems that our municipality is kind of in between an affluent town who had the financial resources to do this, and a larger city which would have additional financial and human resources to attain the certification. And so my opinion was that at this time, that we continue in our manner, looking for ways to enhance our community through all our missions, through EAC and the village, and continue like we are, and we can certainly utilize some of the suggestions or criterion that LEED has and process that way. And I just gave you a couple little comparisons of Jupiter Inlet Colony and Village of Tequesta in reference to homes, populations, and their values, just to have that so you could see how different we were in income. So that basically is where that led to. If Jay, you have anything else to add to?
No, I completely agree with you, and talking to Bill Whiteford too, I think Jupiter Inlet Colony also got a little bit of special treatment from that program because they're small, and the program wanted to use it as a pilot to show that small communities can do that. So they probably got additional hand-holding and grants that maybe we wouldn't be, because there's other communities our size. And then a previous city I worked in, Atlantic Beach, has also, I think they were the first one to do this in the state. And the people that my predecessors told me, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of good for show, but you don't really get a ton of value out of the program. So I agree with Michelle.
And he also had it was a plenty of resource information for other things that they have accomplished and that he's accomplished with some of the other organizations that he is involved with. For example, I always want to call it Dreher Park Museum, but it's not. What's the name of it now?
What do you
Museum.
call it?
Yeah.
Dreher Park?
Yeah, but it's
that's
not.
Frost Science Museum?
Nah, they've got a whole new name for all of it, the zoo and everything. But anyway,
I know the
Are you talking about the Palm Beach Zoo? Are you talking about just?
Is it Palm Beach Zoo? Is that what it's called?
That's the Cox Science Center, but that's the Science Center. I think it's just
Well,
the Palm Beach Zoo,
It's a
right?
part of whatever we're talking about. The point
It
is,
used to be Dreher Park.
yeah, the entire
Yeah.
thing is run on solar, which was fascinating. So and then some other things about how they attain their underground utilities for resiliency, and so he's a good resource person for sure with context.
Well, thank you. You did an awesome job, and I know we all appreciate all of this, and I certainly agree and think that it's a tough ask at this point in time, without a doubt. And I think that in the future, it could be something that could potentially be revisited, just because I think when it is certain, this could be a community that it would potentially be of benefit to us, but I would foresee that being further down the road, I
There's
think.
aspects from that we've learned going through the process which are very beneficial for us. So we'll continue to look at possible incentives or rewards that we can utilize for green building
And they may develop some grants between now and when we're ready, you know, to
And the grants,
incentivize for
yeah.
us as well.
Yeah.
And also to that point, the village manager, I know we've talked a little bit about lead incentives on a project by project, building by building basis. And I think I told you when I first started here that, you know, it's tough because a lot of those are usually like building height or building density, which, you know,
Which we're not interested in.
do not mention those in Tequesta, so
No.
we don't really have those in our toolkit, but there are a few other things that maybe we can, you know, they're not gonna be as big and grand as those, but, you know, where we can
Yeah.
offer like permit fee reduction.
Right.
So we're gonna bring back, at the next meeting, maybe the worst of 2 meetings, and I'll work with Michelle on this too, because I know it's a topic, you know, that you've been working on. Kind of a list of ideas that we could consider.
I would be interested to hear from realtors too, because again, it's kind of like any shiny sticker makes things look better and good, even when people don't know what it is or what it's
in
for.
that incentive train of thought, even if the Village of Tequesta, if we develop an award system that recognizes them in the media and they get a certificate, stamp, stickers,
Well,
whatever
I've
it
seen,
is.
like in Boston, I mean, they have, like they can, yeah, some in buildings, you get built into the building when you're like such recognition. So in terms of future, foresight for the future of the village, I would think that it would behoove us to have as many redevelopment or projects that we're willing to do so, certainly to make that effort, even if we're not able to commit to, you know, going for the certification yet. It would show that we're committed, we're on track to, or it's you know, in our sights in the future, which is something I don't think we should lose sight of potentially.
So I'll make a motion. I move that we accept Michelle's recommendation for the village not to pursue LEED certification for the village at this time, and that we will continue to look into the creation of incentives to allow developers and homeowners to seek LEED certifications of their own.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you get, is that, we good?
I'll listen to the recording.
Okay, thank you, because that was great. I thought it was great. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Michelle. And I think that
My
wraps
pleasure.
that one up. So now we're moving on to new business. Jay is going to present the results of the citizen survey.
And unfortunately, I don't have this in a PowerPoint form, but hopefully you all looked at it. I just wanted to share this with you guys. I think it can help shape, you know, kind of your opinion of what are some priorities the village has. Question number 11 specifically says the village has an EAC that looks into issues that have an effect on the village. Are there any that concern you? The number 1 answer was shoreline protection, then water pollution, plastic waste, which we covered today. And then number 3 is trash waste, then climate change, pollution, none of the above, and then other, and that's where people kind of put in individual answers, so you'll see some good things in there. Good news, bad news. One person said, get rid of the EAC.
Yeah, I saw that.
Unfortunately, that was only one person, right? So, there you go.
That's hilarious, right?
And on shoreline protection, you know, I think we talked about that when the Jupiter and the Colony had their big shoreline erosion issue. The village manager and I have really tried educating ourselves about it. It's a lot more complicated of a situation than we could have ever realized. So one of the people that's really educated us a lot is Joe Chasen, who's the executive director of the Jupiter Inlet Colony, Jupiter Inlet District. We're going to get him to come to the next meeting, and then we're also going to try and get Andy Stoop, who manages all of Palm Beach County's beach renourishment programs. So we'll try and have both of them come, and kind of like we had here today, have really a long discussion and dialogue about that. It's definitely a very complex situation that you can't just solve it in a day, but we'll try and get that conversation started in the next meeting. And then if there's any other things that you guys notice in here, certainly we can look into evaluating.
Does anybody have any comments or they want
I haven't,
questions?
just because I saw quickly the feasibility of undergrounding overhead utilities, that's quite a big response.
Yes, and we
Percentage, that's
are,
good.
we do have that in our.
What item number was that for the council in their strategic agenda?
I'm not positive, but I know it's a priority, there's some funding for it, and it's,
I have notes from when we were at that workshop and I heard.
I could help shed light on that. At the session where the council had their strategic plan items, they sort of kiboshed. The outcome was they kiboshed the concept of a master plan because, for at least one reason, there currently appears to be only 2 communities that would actually end up going undergrounding, and that would be Tequesta Country Club and Beach Road. Everything else seems unlikely or is already underground. I don't know where that leads us relative to how you get the ball rolling, but I've written numerous emails telling them how they can do it and showing them how it's done. That's the status as I know it for underground.
Okay.
can I jump into
go
one
for
thing I
it.
forgot to mention?
Yes.
So these questions obviously aren't all encompassing of everything. Prior to us doing this next year, because it's an annual thing,
Mhm.
I'll make a note to talk to this board well in advance of the survey going out so that you guys can actually tell us what questions you want to ask. We could probably formulate that one a little bit better. Like trash waste is a question, plastic waste is another question. We can use this better, I think, next time.
Yeah, and I mean, again, even, yes, we had a lot of, not just under the public comment too, but just even under the questions about, like, Parks and Rec, there were a lot of answers that pertained to stock development and wanting more green space, wanting, to preserve, try to reacquire Paradise Park, no more development, more activities, more park. We have enough parks for the size of our village. Not all undeveloped parcels should be developed, a lot of just showing that it is a very green, eco-friendly community and they value their outdoor space. That I think is important for us all to see and know that it's throughout. If you didn't have a chance to read responses throughout, I mean, there were a lot in here, and I think that, I hope, that the council focuses on, the things that they're being told they're concerned with.
So, when did it seems like it's an annual event. When do they actually release the survey for the public to respond? Is it like January, February?
I remember taking.
Just schedule. I'm sorry.
Just when
The
the survey
schedule
goes
for
out.
the issuance of an annual such citizen survey.
I don't know if it's annual, Tom. I think it's as needed.
I thought that Jeremy was using it for input to share with the council so that they have that when they go to their strategic planning process.
Yeah, I know they did one in 2023 as well. The date, you guys should see the dates of the responses, and the first one is 2/1/24, all the way to the end of February. So I think it goes out at the end of January or the end of
I'm
February.
gonna look it up.
You mean the results or the?
No, the actual
Oh,
survey
okay,
itself.
all right. So let's just say it's January for talking purposes. Then I would think it would be wise to, like, November, have it on our agenda, maybe have it again on December, and then we submit what we end up with, something like that.
Stormwater is a big issue to people, to residents, it seems, too. I mean, was that, did we pick up, was that something we're noting too, or, no?
It's in the strategic plan, stormwater.
Yes, okay.
Was smaller in the survey?
I don't remember any specific comments.
Oh, I mean, okay. I see stormwater drainage, flooding issues. We've got the storm surge evacuation plan needs to be revised. Evacuating areas west of Old Dixie for Cat 1 and 2 hurricanes doesn't seem necessary. They've got, I thought stormwater seemed to be, there was a survey question too.
There's satisfaction of quality of stormwater treatment,
But that one was,
stormwater management.
I think there's a disconnect in the citizenry of the community relative to, yeah, they're all interested in keeping the streets clear and not flooding their home, but they're not understanding that a lot of it may be due to climate change, sea level rise, and other factors that need to be taken into account. I don't think they get it, and it's probably our job to make sure that we find out a way to help them understand
it. I know just even from marketing and public relations, people don't generally fill things out. You know, that's not, unless there's enormous cause to do so, or it's a specific type of person that is responsive to these. So I do remember, you know, I've recently saw 2023, and I looked again to see if things seem to be escalating or if they seem to be being addressed. And I don't know, do you know, I believe that this definitely had more, 114 comments, additional comments, was more than 2023. And again, a lot of it was with trash and outdoor space and not developing and, you know, keeping it green. And I think I seem to sense frustration in the comments that I know have been reflected in my own sentiments sometimes, you know, with things we could be improving on just for the better of the village and everybody as a whole. So, but thank you for that presentation. I think you're also going to talk to us about Arbor Day, unless anybody has any other questions about the survey.
Okay, so we had a great Arbor Day event. It was kind of a last minute thing. Next year we will engage this board and you know, well in advance of it. Marcia actually was there and had some great suggestions, which I think would, to kind of pull off what she wants to do and what we need to do, we could probably start planning for it in January of next year. And as Chair Hamath has pointed out, we didn't really have a Earth Day event, and Earth Day and Arbor Day are kind of similar, so what we could probably do next year is actually have a joint Earth Day, Arbor Day event.
And yeah, I mean, this is certainly, who is planning this, or who is Arbor Day? Because I think we would love to be involved, certainly as...
It was honestly, it was kind of a last minute thing. I did just because I know we needed the Tree City USA. One of the last things that we needed to do that is to have an Arbor Day event. And
so we checked that off, yes.
So we checked that off the list, but it was one of those things where if you don't plan a big event out, 4 or 5 months in advance, it's too tricky to do it. So I just kind of realized, hey, we've got the Tequesta Drive planning project that's done. We have a perfect opportunity to just hold the last tree for that, which is what we did. Invited some elementary kids. We ended up having something like probably 30.
Yeah.
God.
But so are we planning? But for next year, it sounds like are you planning?
I'm just,
volunteering. Oh, okay.
She just gave me some suggestions for how to improve things for next year.
Oh, great. Okay.
And there's some great suggestions in there. But that would lead to us, like I said, having to kind of plan it out a little bit further in advance. But I think the elementary school kids loved it. We had kids from Good Shepherd and Providence School.
I didn't even know they were there.
Where is Providence School, by the way?
So it's a school right here on Tequesta Drive. It's really small. I think they focus on dyslexia. But it's local kids. I knew.
You're pointing that way?
It's near the
It's on that other side of
This
the
way.
back of the street.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That little plaza behind.
Yeah, the classroom area.
Next
So-
year we'll open it up a little more. It was just kind of thrown together and we did well.
I mean, for how quickly we threw it together, we had 30 kids. The mayor read proclamation, got proclamation, calling it Arbor Day. The kids came up and read the proclamation with her.
That
Really,
was great.
And I'd like to update everybody that I mentioned Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree, and all of the kids nodded and remember. They said, "Oh, we love that book," and I was so happy to hear that they're still reading and loving The Giving Tree. Sorry.
And I had like a little Q&A at the beginning, and I was like, asking questions. They were like, "Yeah, we did this. We know this already."
Right.
The teachers had actually done like an hour or two session about Arbor Day before they even came.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then we planted the tree, and then the kids each got to get a little shovel and put some dirt
You're
back
sweet,
in the
yeah.
tree. They loved it.
Good job.
Weymouth was there. I said, "Get a picture with them. You guys may not know, but your parents, your grandparents do."
It was
Right.
fun. My son was there. He had fun. Yes,
And we're going to put in for Tree City, that was like kind of the last box we had to check. We're going to put in for a Tree City application. I actually have a new planner to introduce here, Meg Weigel.
Hi, Meg. How are you? Yes.
She started 2 weeks ago. She's going to be able to help out a lot with stuff. She actually is a graduate of the Jupiter High Environmental Academy.
Oh,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
She and I are we'll put together that Tree City application.
Well, again, I've put for our schools locally, St. Mark's was the last that I did an Earth Day, but I mean, there are phenomenal resources. Loggerhead has a phenomenal education program that they give out kits to do things and set up fun booths, and River Center will come out with there's a lot of contacts and resources that I have if we wanted to do a full-blown Earth Day event, which I think we certainly have the space for, and I know we've reached out for Halloween events. We've had, River Center, Bush Wildlife there also, so.
Your scavenger hunt idea?
Yes, it's not mine. It was the kids' idea, the kids of the village. But I definitely think that there is opportunity for that, and I would be happy to help with any resources that I have also. So
There is one aspect of Arbor Day that can become problematic, and that is that many cities use the event to place trees in their parks, for example, which is, on the surface seems okay, but over time, the open space in the park becomes less and less and less, and the kids can't throw a frisbee, or they can't, whatever they want to do. So I would think, what I would love to do is that the village, their Arbor Day planting would, for the foreseeable future, would always be a streetscape tree to improve the canopy along the street somehow, some way, in conjunction, or start the process on a street that has nothing, something like that. What was
Definitely.
that, Marsh? I couldn't hear.
Tag the
Yeah. Yeah, because and that's true. I mean, I told those kids, I was like, you guys planted this, you're going to watch this tree grow, and you'll be
Yeah.
able to see it, so to have a tag and a date would be really cool to have, or like a plaque or something.
That sounds like something way to figure out.
I did email them, they haven't gotten back. They don't have it in their school.
All right, well, thank you, and I guess this now is leading to my presentations here, and I was just going to try to start with number 9 here, the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Task Force. So this was a meeting that took place down at the Miccosukee Indian Casino, and it is a group of individuals, I'm trying to find my agenda item here, that are from every organization of government. There was the Department of Environmental Protections and NOAA and the Army Corps of Engineers, and every local South Florida water management district was there, and all of these different agencies talking about the restoration of the South Florida ecosystem. And it was very informative. I was looking for somebody, I'm curious, who from, I'm still hoping to find the answers so I can hook up to meet with somebody else that was there from our region, because they were covering a lot of very important information. So SERP, which is where I was jumping down to, is kind of starting, this is their, you can see, programmatic and system-wide perspective with all of those different organizations around that circle. I think there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, it looks like to me, if I can count all of those little logos. I think it's slide page 99 is where I am right now, who is recover.
I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble.
Sorry, guys. Well, anyway, so there are three major components where they assess, they measure the system-wide performance of projects through research and monitoring. There's evaluation where they forecast project performance through predictive modeling and performance measures, and then there's planning. So they integrate recover with planning and operation of the system. On the next slide, you'll see the monitoring for SERP is system-wide, and you'll see that there are a few things drawn to our area, very near our region, right? So I, of course, was interested. We've got our oyster beds, and there's monitoring of the water quality and that sort of thing. And so this, trying to understand the monitoring supports these different levels. We fall under the South Florida Water Management District, so the third kind of tier there. And I wanted to talk about that before going into South Florida Water Management District's presentation, which if you just kind of go back up, it's, I guess we'll say 90 slide, the program and project update from Mindy Parrott, where she talks about restoring the Indian River Lagoon and the St. Lucie River. And then talking about moving clean water south was interesting. However, then we got to the slide, restoring the Loxahatchee River. And there are three components that are in design, but you will see 10 listed here that are all in consideration and, I mean, moving forward imminently. So my only concern, my biggest concern, I guess, listening to this, and I was so grateful to know that there are resources being allocated to the Loxahatchee and that they're aware that there's an ecosystem issue. Obviously, where this water that is coming from and the quality of it is of enormous concern to me. And then also, you know, the rest of the meeting basically is centered around restoring the natural flow and undoing these sort of implementations on the Tamiami and in South Florida. So it's hard for me to understand why we would be implementing them in today's day and age if the goal tends to be to restore. So but I'm not, you know, an Army Corps of Engineer. I don't know the math of these things, but I do, you know, get concerned because there has been a lot of public pressure on them to not flood the Southern Everglades and to clean up water in certain places. And I just want to make sure that we are in partnership, or we know who's taking care of making, you know, being responsible for the river and following along with this on our end too, so we can help educate our residents that these things are all going on also. So I personally would love to see if Mindy would be able to maybe come and speak with us. I don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in hearing what them explain. I think that they breezed over this in the task force meeting because it's just our little Loxahatchee. They kind of touched on it and then moved on. I actually have the 35 seconds, I think, recorded that I'm happy to email. But if they could do a deeper dive for us or kind of explain what was happening and, you know, what we could expect, I think that would be
Specifically to our
the Loxahatchee
Yeah,
River.
that'd be
Yes,
very interesting.
right. I would think so. So if there's, I don't know. Do I need a motion for that or no? I don't.
Ultimately, previously when I looked this up before the meeting, you can tell, well, first of all, does everybody understand the reason they want to have increased freshwater flow to the Loxahatchee River?
So we have a salinity issue.
Yeah.
When we permanently opened our inlet and we get our 6-foot tidal change that comes through multiple times, we have killed our cypress trees and that habitat upriver because there's way too much salt water coming in. So the idea is that if we can just flood fresh water in, or if we can kind of flush it with fresh water, we might balance it out.
Correct. So the game plan for South Florida Water Management District is to used the Loxahatchee Slough, they called it, as the route for getting, one of the main routes for getting fresh water to the Loxahatchee River. The others are coming from the north or the northeast. But it was very clear in the stuff you provided that some of this water is coming directly via canal from the Lake Okeechobee.
Right.
Which can be a very nasty.
And I did, in my public comment, I did say, I begged, I said, thank you, but please know, we do not have the issues that they have in the Indian River Lagoon and up north, thank goodness, because we don't have that water coming in.
Don't bring it.
Yeah, we don't
Right,
want that.
so this is my concern, because there was crickets. I mean, I was the only person speaking for the Loxahatchee there. So again, I just am very concerned about knowing that 10 projects.
Yeah, let's bring them in.
Because, yeah, exactly.
We're all gonna
I hear you.
Yeah,
But
that's
it
all
is, because, they're not always happy with them either, I've found, and they're having to present on things that, they might have been told to do by a board or commission. So finding out as much as we can and then figuring out what we need to do as a community to protect our resources, I think is important. Because again, this task force went out on an airboat tour for the first time the day before this meeting. And they've been working with the Everglades National Park, with all of those partners with the Everglades decisions for years and years and years, but they've never even seen the Everglades. So we have to remember too that this is our river that we're, and they also have incorporated a component of indigenous knowledge, which I thought was great. So I also asked when it was my turn, or our turn for public comment, I said, much like you're incorporating indigenous knowledge, if there are any problems that arise, we would love to be able to contribute local knowledge and be partners in understanding and in coming up with solutions. So staying on top of that, though, I think, and making sure that, that's respected, I think is another ballgame.
So I make a motion to authorize Jessica Namath as chair and/or staff to make contact with the appropriate official from the appropriate agency to come and speak to us on this subject with a focus on freshwater flow to the Loxahatchee River.
I second.
Yes,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I think that'll be very interesting for us. The other thing that was very interesting, if we go to the Florida's Coral Reef issue here,
What number?
we'll go back, it's number 6.
Okay.
So, this is a very big issue. Well, to me, when you hear about the people in Washington, this is referred to as the only coral reef system in North America. So I really just want to stress that, let that just sink in. The only coral reef system in all of North America is off our coast and stretches down to the Keys. Unfortunately, last year there was what they're calling a catastrophic heat occurrence where the National Coral Reef Monitoring Program was able to establish that, you can see on slide, these are all out of order, I apologize. It's not, I don't think that's in there, but there's basically slide, is it
56 maybe?
Well, no, this one that shows the bottom half of the Keys here, essentially the bottom portion of this reef system is essentially all died off. And it's only, the northern portion that's up here, this portion of it, that didn't suffer, isn't bleached. And so they're hopeful that they are going to be able to potentially have restoration, but for me, when I'm sitting here listening, I just feel such an enormous responsibility that we're doing everything in our power to protect this reef system that is, when you look at the map, I mean, it's a huge, bulky portion off of, this is northern Palm Beach County, that's ours, guys. This reef is a huge chunk of it. And even down at the Science Center, the Cox Science Center, they have a huge sign talking about the reef system. I included a link for those of you that might want to take a peek. It's called the Kristen Jacobs Coral Reef Ecosystem Conservation Area, our portion of it. That name which, you know, you would think would be almost like a household name or something. We would know the name of the reef system. I'm embarrassed to say that it didn't jump. I wasn't like, oh yes, that's what it's called. And I think that's negligence on our part as a community, or lack of education. Not negligence, I won't say. But this is a big issue. And our coastline, you know, we know that we have a huge amount of tourism and economics and a lot invested in our beaches and our reefs. And so I think that this is something that, again, I felt like I was not as aware of, this bleaching event from last year. And, you know, this is another potential presentation if we wanted to reach out and have somebody come explain from our portion of this Upper Keys what resources there may be. I think, you know, not in the same month, obviously, but if we wanted to have this for another meeting, I also think that this is very important and something that I know I could be learning more about and what we could be doing. And would like to hear from some sort of an authority.
You know more than me by a long shot on the subject of the reef, but do you know about how far off our shore the reef system is? Approximately.
Approximately, I don't know how far offshore, but I know that there is a reef system at about 80 foot of depth.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would be somebody that would probably not, I would consider the little fragmented I would consider every bit a part of, because, you know, you can snorkel not far offshore,
right,
even, and see portions of the reef system, so.
So your request on this agenda item is to authorize you to bring in a speaker?
I guess what it is I wanted to gauge and see how informed we all feel about our coral reef that is the only coral reef system in North America. And I just was not, I think that as somebody that's the one with the public a lot of the times, I don't feel like I have done enough on my part to educate about this and, you know, inform kids of what they could be doing or what we all could be doing. Like, I know the sunscreen and the, you know, making sure that we're using reef-friendly sunscreens, especially as we're approaching summertime, is something in our community that is little things that we can do to just to know that we're doing that, at least, I think.
Well, shouldn't we start with a speaker?
That's what I was saying, yeah.
Okay.
So for me, that's what I would like to have. And if
So you want me to make a motion to allow
if you are all interested and feel like we need it, like I do.
You're a good motion maker.
Yeah,
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. I'll make a motion to authorize Jessica Namath and/or staff to reach out to an appropriate official at the appropriate agency or agencies to come and speak to the EAC about the health of the reef system, etc., off our shoreline.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
You know what I do
And-
find interesting about this? Look at the red and white, the counterpart to that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all this red is all alert, highest alert. Look at that little patch of yellow. Miami is a watch. How is Miami pulling that off?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Let's end this on a good note. I don't know if you all saw this, but about 2 or 3 weeks ago, in the Palm Beach Post, there was an article that said 300 miles off of our shoreline, directly east of us, they found a thriving, living coral reef system the size of Vermont. I'm just saying, I just thought you might want to hear that.
I would love to. I mean, definitely, yeah.
And so
That's
there's,
fantastic.
I would
news.
assume that the water's not as hot that deep. But I don't know what I'm talking about, but that.
No, that's fantastic news. They didn't mention that.
Pardon? No, you're 100% true. I mean, I do a lot of diving down in the Keys. 10 to 15 foot of water, all coral heads are gone. And this picture does no justice. It looks way worse.
Well, unfortunately.
However, if you go further out to the reefs that are in the 30 to 60 foot range, very little of it, maybe some, but nothing like closer in. So yeah, the more shallow you are, the hotter the temperature is going to get in the water, the more damage to the reef system.
The unfortunate thing about this too is that they were behind the ball. Well, there's a silver lining is that they have started learning and looking at ways to mitigate and help and developing the programs for that, because I know that there weren't corals being grown. There wasn't like a supply ready to go out, in other words, to cover or to try to rehabilitate currently. It's more of trying to figure out, whoa, how did that just happen so quickly? And, you know, what can we do? So anyway, I think that learning more about it would
100%.
fit into our community and culture, and I think we should know about it and residents would care, so thank you. All right, the last, I have another presentation, guys. So item 7, light pollution. This is just wild, and I'm happy to email whoever's interested the presentation, but the Sierra Club Loxahatchee chapter had Dr. Maria Moda, who was talking about the effects on our health from light pollution, not just on the environment, and he was following the studies of this Dr. Stevens, who had realized that light pollution world maps basically overlaid where the spike in breast cancers were, and that when they were able to look into that, basically they found that artificial light suppresses melatonin, which inhibits our immune system, and our body naturally creates about 5 to 10 cancerous cells a day, just based on, you know, the statistics of what goes on in there. But they can take care of those, are manageable. The problem is when our immune system is suppressed and they're able to multiply, then we have problems. So I was very interested in that, and he had, I mean, statistics that related to crime and to community development and just fascinating points. So just looking at the time here, I think I'd be happy to email. I know it's on like the YouTube page for the Sierra Club Loxahatchees. If anybody is interested in taking a peek at the light pollution, and then we could discuss it maybe at our next meeting and see what we feel like we should do. But this is something, again, we know, and I was happy that this is one of those where you take care of the earth and the earth takes care of you. Fortunately, we're a sea turtle community, and we do respect light during certain months and try to be aware of it.
Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you send us an email through the Tequesta email system like yesterday or the day before on this light pollution?
No,
I
that
saw
was
it,
the
I remember-
Audubon Society had another speaker on light pollution, but that was affecting the environment.
Oh.
And so the Nobel Prize in 2018 for science, I believe, was to disruptions in circadian rhythm on a molecular level, or it was molecular disruptions in circadian rhythm, something like that. So this is not just, hocus pocus, or it's not fringe theory anymore. This is something, there's really actual scientific data. And so I think that, again...
So as chair, are you more interested in the impact to human health or the environment? Since this is an environmental committee.
Yeah, of course, the environment. I just thought that this presentation was different than the others that I'd seen because it addressed the environmental concerns and also the health effects on the community. And I mean, our environment, our outdoor environment is affected by our light pollution, which affects our health. So it's all intertwined.
You have a link to that?
Yes.
That you can share
Yes.
through the...
So what do you
It's an hour
want?
and a half long.
My ask, Jessica, is what do you want us to
I
do?
would like to send this out and then see what you guys would like to do based on having watched it next month, just to see if there is anything we think we should do, because...
Yeah, as long as you put the proviso at the bottom that says, do not respond to this to avoid
Yes.
violation of Florida sunshine law.
Right.
Okay, yeah, it's fine with me.
I mean, just because,
Perfect.
yeah.
Send it out. Okay.
I think it's just something we all, and I would, would be happy to send it to Jay. I don't know who all, for me, when I left, I'm like planning and zoning, the council, the EAC, we should all watch this. It's so informative and again affects every aspect of our lives.
Well, you definitely should copy Jay and or Megan.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I will send that out and we can discuss at the next meeting. And I know you had said, it's not comments from chair yet. Are we item 10, Jay? Or are we?
We're on 8.
We kind of jumped around. I covered all of these different items. It's just I went out of order because I didn't notice on the agenda when I
Gotcha.
saw it that
No
I
problem.
wanted to make that change beforehand. Sorry, Marianne. That was my fault.
I re-listened to it.
So are we on the reorg?
I don't know. Is it comments from chair or
What
reorg?
happened to 8? You didn't do Loxahatchee with
That was what I started with, just because I wanted to introduce the program, SERP and that, yes.
They were on 10.
10.
And then you have some other stuff you want to add, right?
Well, it was just,
We did it.
we can include it next month. You know, we didn't have all of my items that were for last month weren't included, so I was going to talk about the Beach Road Association's annual meeting.
Well, I think that Mary Ann and Jay want us out of here by 4:30.
Yes.
So, do we have enough time to do reorg plus whatever's on your minds?
Why don't we do the reorg first, because that's important, and then
That's fine. And we can save, we can talk, yeah, we can
We need
reorg.
to push something.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, go ahead, Jay.
So, you guys did a reorg last year in May as well. So it's time to do a reorg again, which is just to nominate a chair and a vice chair. I'll entertain a motion. Talk amongst yourselves.
I'm like, didn't we just do this? But it was because Tom had just.
Yeah, I left.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So where do we leave it? That, are you still interested? Because we left it open for your return.
I'm not interested. I'm very busy with 3 other organizations, and you know, I can be helpful just sitting here, I guess. But I had the belief that all of you are above average intelligence, and you're all successful in your own way, in your own right. So one of the things I like about the fact that others are doing or are willing to do, being the chair, is that you are likely to eventually be on and or are on boards today, and it would help you to be a good board member and or a chair of a board if you get your practice here with the EAC. It's almost inevitable if you're successful or highly intelligent or whatever, you're going to be on a board, and the more practice you get, the better you will run a meeting. So I don't really have an interest in doing it at all. I think I can be helpful here just as a regular member and let the others be chair and or vice chairs. I think that's important. I do think that whoever is chair needs to understand the nature of agenda management, time management, and writing of memorandums and or printing Gmail emails, similar to what Michelle did today with a statement of a problem or facts, and making a recommendation. That's all very important because it tells you, a board member, before the meeting, the issue as well as a recommendation. And so you know where this thing is going to go when that person, in this case Michelle, made her presentation. You already knew. And that helps you to prepare for the meeting. Those kind of things are very important. It is also important for the chair and anybody, for that matter, to stay abreast of environmental issues. You got to have a newspaper, magazines. You got whatever thing you see it, send it to the board to help educate them. You know, we all don't like. I know virtually nothing about the coral reefs. Okay, I know they're important. I know they're in trouble. I know they're dying, but I don't know how to fix it, and so forth. So. We all have pros and cons about our knowledge that we have about environmental issues, but whoever is the chair needs to make sure they address those things I just rattled on.
Well put.
I mean, I'll just clear the deck. I would love to take on a larger position here, but I simply can't. I'm spread too thin, so I would not be in a position to take a chair or vice chair role. So
I like the way you presented that. I'll clear the deck out one more card at this coming year. We just retired, and I am planning to enjoy that.
Good for you. That's great.
Cheers.
Give me a year.
So that leaves Brad and Jill.
Yeah,
And,
Did you clear the deck?
I'm clear
you've
on
said
that.
nay in the past, I remember that, because of work and family and so forth.
He's still there.
He's still there. So we're down to Jill and Brad and Jessica, of course.
I'm clearing the deck too.
All these deck clears.
New terminology we could
Guess
use.
they're stuck with us, like, oh, just look what the cat dragged in. Hey.
I mean, it's the kindest way of saying I would do a disservice. I mean,
Yes.
I'm literally on 2 other boards, like, I just can't.
I understand.
I like
I'll
being
do a
the
better
helper.
job of writing the memo, you know, if you would like to nominate to keep me as the chair.
I'll nominate Jessica as chair.
Thanks, Brad.
I'll second that.
Thanks, guys.
So all
I
in-
appreciate it.
So we have a motion from Brad and a second from Clay to have Jessica continue as the chair.
I would make a motion for Brad to be the vice chair.
Well, let's do one at a time.
Okay.
So is there?
All those in
So we have
favor?
we have a first and a second for Jessica as chair. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Any nays? No nays.
I'll make a motion to have
Motion passed.
Brad
Okay.
as vice chair. Am I able to do that?
Yes.
Okay, does anybody
Second.
make a second? All those in favor?
Brad, do you want?
Yeah, I'll accept.
It was like 5 minutes ago, we just did it.
I wasn't clearing the deck over here, right?
He just committed, like 2 months ago. Yes, I mean, okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? No, no, okay. I'm certainly in favor. All right, and I think that we can carry my comments on to the next month.
I will send you, Jessica, an email with an attachment of the standard EAC email document.
Template.
There you
The
go.
template.
That'd be great,
That's
thank you.
good, yeah. And thank you both for
Yeah, absolutely.
taking the positions.
Yeah,
You're both very good.
that's right.
Again, I will do a better job
You're
with
gonna
writing
learn,
the memos.
just like Tom said.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a
excellent
learning
learning
process.
opportunity.
I know. I mean, I've been on it 5 years, you'd think I would have learned this by now. But I hear ya, all right.
So, okay, so we did that, so don't we have something, the other matters that
No,
y'all, you two
I'm-
were talking about?
We're
Something?
gonna delay until the next meeting, I think we're good. All those, is that okay? The
I think that's fine.
comments from-
I don't even know
Mary
what they
Ann
are,
likes
so.
that.
Yeah, I mean,
Can I make the motion?
yes.
Yes, sir,
Sure.
you can.
There
Make
you
a
go.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Agreed. All right.
Thank you for everybody's
All right.
time.
Oy, oy, oy. Yeah, it is an hour-and-a-half long YouTube presentation, but the
For
guy
the,
is
the
fascinating.
coral
He
reef
built,
thing?
no, the Mario mode of the light.
Oh.
He builds
Right,
his
right.
own, telescopes, and he's, just a very interesting guy just to listen to talk.